Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're here, it's very likely that you relate to having anxious and or avoidant relationship patterns. So today I want to talk to you about the role of your inner critic when it comes to your healing, when it comes to changing the relationship that you have with yourself and with others. So your inner critic is that internal harsh voice that tells you that you're not good enough. It asks, who do you think you are? And it usually tells you that you need to be prettier, funnier, kinder if you're ever going to find, have, or keep a relationship. So with your inner critic, and let me just say, stay tuned until the end because I am going to be sharing a key element that's going to support you to manage that internal sort of bullyish voice. And it might not actually be what you think it is. Okay. So, an inner critic is an attempt to control you, actually to protect you, to keep you safe, and to kind of keep you where you are without changing, if you like. When it comes to relationship wounds and developmental trauma, there's usually been times in your life where things have felt very out of control. And so, this is a strategy, and it's actually a strategy that does make sense when you really dive in. It's an attempt, like I say, to try and keep you safe. Now, because you're here watching this channel, I'm fairly confident in saying that your inner critic probably has a job or is attempting to keep you safe, especially around relationships, especially around taking risks with love. That's not always easy to hear, but like I say, I am here to support you with managing that internal voice. So I'm Carly Ann. I'm a one-to-one coach. I'm a founder of Follow Your Fire, which is an online membership for all things attachment styles and rediscovering yourself. So I work with people one-to-one that want to understand, interrupt, and reshape their attachment style. So meaning how you show up in your relationships, how secure you feel, how much you're willing to give things a shot. So you can check all the details of that in my bio. So there's a few things that I want to say. So firstly, everyone does have an inner critic. That is not dependent on your attachment style. It's just that someone with an insecure attachment style, so people who tend to be more anxious around relationships, around getting close to people, it's very possible that you're more in touch with your inner critic. So you are more identified. So it might not even be consciously that you're just walking through the world believing that you're not good enough, that you don't deserve relationships, and you're acting that out, because the reality is the more in touch you are, the more that you believe your inner critic, you're going to feel less secure. So you're basically in the world living your life from the perspective of an inner bully, from the perspective of something in you that says you can't have this. So it can be, it depends on where you are in your journey. It's very possible if you've been doing a lot of the work. So I tend to be working with people who you've really built up a lot of awareness now when it comes to your insecurities, when it comes to your role in your relationships. However, you can still consciously see yourself defaulting to old patterns. So usually it's possible, if you have been doing this work and you've become more aware of that internal dialogue, that you're actually even in a place now where you're moving between self-criticism and self-compassion. That's possible. It might be that you're very aware that you're not even in touch with the idea of self-compassion. That's very, very possible. Or you might see that your inner critic is now solely kind of showing up in relationships, and that's why you feel like it's holding you back. And the reality is, this does impact how you feel, you know? It can really leave you feeling sad. It can leave you feeling, if something in you is criticizing, it means something in you is being criticized, and that can hurt. And that's when we feel low, and that's when we feel worthless and helpless. So it can bring about so many difficult emotions. Maybe you feel really anxious because you do want to put yourself out there, but you have this constant voice telling you that you can't do it. everyone else deserves this but you. And that sounds so harsh, and they're certainly not my words, but I know how harsh our inner critic can be. And probably actually me saying that is nothing on how harsh our actual inner critics can be, especially when there's insecure attachment. So if you are in that liminal space where you logically know about self-compassion and you logically know about the kind of thinking patterns that's going to support you in relationships versus what you're actually experiencing, then you're in a place where you're ready. You're seeing changes already. Awareness is important. I now want to support you to take that extra step when it comes to managing your inner critic. But whatever the situation you're in, you are noticing moments with your inner critic because you're here. You're here listening to this. And look, for people that I work with, there are definitely common themes when it comes to where you're hard on yourself and even like how you talk to yourself. This might be, I see it a lot happen. There's a few examples coming to me, so I'm going to share them with you on the off chance that you can relate to them in some way. But quite often, I see people's inner critic really wake up when they have defaulted back to an old pattern. So, say if you had a situation with your partner and you then started sulking, and you really had this awareness where you wanted to get out of it because maybe you even knew it was like ruining what could be a good date or something like that. After the situation, when you are more grounded again, when you are feeling okay and you can see the situation clearly, your inner critic might be like just go absolutely wild on you because you defaulted to an old pattern again. You haven't changed. You can't do this. I work with people who are so hard on themselves about certain life circumstances, about where they think they should be in life now compared to like where they are. I see people being so hard on themselves about being single, after conflict. Wow, after conflict is a time where if someone struggles with insecurity, and this goes for anxious or avoidant, when in the past there usually has been really vulnerable spaces for people when it comes to conflict, and this has led into their adult relationships. And so when you've been in that heated moment, been triggered, had that conflict, or it might have been a healthy conflict, but afterwards you're so hard on yourself about what you should have done, what you didn't do right, about how this is going to play out now, how this person's now going to leave you, how you can't have relationships because of conflict, which is actually very normal in a relationship. And yeah, other times that your inner critic can go wild is if you're in the presence of someone who reminds you of a parent or a caregiver that was critical. Look, that doesn't have to be conscious. And one thing that we do know a lot of the time with insecure attachment, the people that you get really hooked on, right, they often do remind you of some significant relationship when you were younger. They usually are the one that reflect that difficult relationship that led to sometimes a developmental trauma or relationship wounds. So if we're reminded of people where there was criticism, then your inner critic wakes up and it just goes absolutely wild. So they're just a few examples. I would be so interested to know for you, when does your inner critic wake up? Like, how do you know that it's happening? And you can just, from those examples I've given, you can imagine how that goes on to impact your relationships. It really has a significant impact on your mood. So if you're about to go out on a date, that whole energy is shifted because your inner critic is in the driver's seat. Or like I say, you lose a day of joy in your relationship, or weeks sometimes, because there has been a conflict and you can't forgive yourself and you can't move on, even when there's nothing to forgive yourself for. Because like I say, I see this a lot, even with healthy relationship conflict and situations. Now, I would love to take this moment to ask you to subscribe to this channel, like the video, because that's how I reach people just like you and just like me. I have been through this. Trust me, this is not just from professional experience, this is also personal experience. And my understanding is that YouTube loves it if we like and we subscribe to the channels. It's more likely to push it out, this video, to the people that need it, to people that are also struggling with their inner critic. And like I say, I'm going to give you a bit of insight into how I support people to manage their inner critic so that they can change their relationships. Like I said nearer the beginning of this video, I want to share with you the concept that I tend to use when working with my clients, and I see this work significantly time and time again. There is a specific client coming to my mind who really felt like she had tried everything, but she hadn't taken this approach. So, in fact, let me just say, just before that, if you can relate to what I'm talking about and you do want to dive in, inside my membership, Follow Your Fire, there is a whole module on the inner critic, and you can join, you can catch up with that. There's resources, support that you can dive straight into. It's going to go a little bit more, well, actually quite a bit more into detail than this YouTube video does. However, what I support people to do is to come into relationship with your inner critic, with that part of you that is trying to control, criticizing, giving you a hard time. And I know that might sound really strange. Why would I want to come into a relationship with something that's essentially bullying me? But like I said, it has a role. It wants something for you in some way. It wants to protect you. And that's what we have to understand. So it will be communicating with you in a certain way. It will be talking to you in a certain way. And so that means that there is space for you to understand how to talk to this part of you that is critical. So coming into relationship with it is becoming present with it, to start to listen to it, to start to understand it. I don't want to say, let's get rid of it, because to me, that's another form of self-rejection. This is a part of you that has been hurt along the way and it's got stuck. And that's why, like I say, with insecure attachment, it's becoming so identified with it. It's become real in your mind that we can't tell where am I, where's myself, what's my inner critic, what's my inner child. It's all very, very confusing. And so learning how to slow down and become present is going to help you to come into relationship and to change how your inner critic talks to you. Rather than trying to numb, change, or fix, why not try listening? We tend to know, right, that meeting something or someone that's struggling, that's trying to control, that's afraid of change, we know that actually we're probably going to support that part or that person to feel safer if we meet it with a calmer tone, with compassion, with understanding, and we start to understand it from its point of view. So take some time. Next time you hear your inner critic, or go straight in and see if you can understand it from its point of view. See if you can understand what it wants for you and what it doesn't want for you. And I know that this approach might sound strange. I am not denying that at all. This sometimes takes more than one session when I'm working with people for them to come around to this idea. And I do that through language. I do that through the conversations that we have. But I can tell you that it's really, really powerful when you choose to form a relationship with this inner critic rather than deny it, rather than try and get rid of it, rather than ignore it. Our strategies, our insecure attachment strategies, they usually have a gift within them. And that's the way that I like to approach this, because, you know, when it does come to anxious, avoidant tendencies, you've been through so much, and often kindness isn't what you know automatically. That sense of kindness, that sense of security, that sense of being heard and being listened to. And so not only does it give you a chance to practice it, like to be there with your inner critic, there's also something in you that's going to be receiving that. And that itself changes our relationships. It changes what we know relationships to be kindness, compassion, understanding, taking on a new perspective. And that's really, really powerful. So I hope this video has been useful. I hope it's helped you to understand a little bit more about your inner critic, about how it shows up, especially in attachment, and this newer concept about coming into relationship with your inner critic. If you need more support with this, like I said, head over to my membership, Follow Your Fire, for that module. Or if you know, I have watched the videos, I have read the books, I have tried all of the things, then you are very welcome to jump on a call with me. We can see how you feel about coaching. Just go to the link in the bio and get all of the details about my coaching before jumping on any calls or anything like that. And if it's something that you feel inspired to do, then you can apply to work with me. Do not forget, you're enough, you're lovable, you are so, so worthy, and you are irreplaceable.